It's Tuesday night. You know what that means. Flyers Talk A2D. It's official. We've been speculating for months. We've been talking about it since the day that the rumors started. It's official. Michkov signed a deal. Michkov is a Flyer. Michkov will start the season in a Flyers uniform. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot of the other free agency moves that happened throughout the league. We're also going to talk about a little bit about the draft. What did you feel about the 13th overall pick? Do you think that was a good move there? Do you think maybe he should have gotten taken a little bit later? Let us know. Throw your comments in the chat. So let's hit that subscribe. Let's hit that like. Turn on those notifications. And if you're on the Facebook side, definitely hit that share button. It's time to talk some Flyers off-season hockey. Michkov is a Flyer. Let's go.
And with that, it's Flyers Talk A2D, and we're powered by the doc. That is Dr. Paul Vidal, Specialized Physical Therapy LLC, with 2 locations in Burlington, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Check out our doc, make them yours, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Matt Sudi going to be logging on with us in just a matter of moments, but we're leading off with Brian Daly, Brad Ryer on the top line, centered by yours truly, Rob Povia. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe for notifications to all your favorite shows on A2D Radio. As Brian alluded to, it's been a week of division in the fan base of the Flyers. Did Danny Briere handle the 2024 NHL Draft to your liking? We're going to get to that and so much more later on the show. But marking June 1st, moving on, we're in the heart. It is officially NHL Free Agency season. So we're going to be talking about, where the Flyers, what activity have they had so far with the limited dollars available? Where will they be moving on with this team as they build for the 24-25 season? But first, we want your response to tonight's face-off poll question. The Flyers signing Michkov will be the biggest move they make this offseason. Agree or disagree? Comment throughout the show. We're going to begin to all of your comments. But first, I want to hear from you, Brian. Can the Flyers make any more noise at this point?
I think this is the biggest noise you can make this offseason. Obviously this is the most highly talented prospect the Flyers have had since Erik Lindros. And the expectation for this kid was to not be here for another 2 to 3 years. He's here now, working on the visa. He may actually already be in Philadelphia. So to me, for this particular offseason, considering a lot of the big fish are already gone, yes, this is the biggest move that they will make. And it should be the biggest move that they make. Rebuild season number 2. Danny Briere said after the draft, expect the team to take a step back. And I think they should take a step back. Allow some of these guys to come in, develop, and get some more young guys up here, fill some of the holes. It's going to take Michkov some time to develop to the North American game anyway. So this is perfect. Next year, when you get a little bit more money, throw some of that money around. See what you can get. But for this offseason in particular, this is the biggest move that they can make, and this is the biggest move that they should make. Maybe bring in another bottom 6 role player, 4th liner, good locker room guy, help some of these younger guys take the next step, which is why you extend Garnet Hathaway for that purpose alone. Outside of that, if I'm Danny Briere, I'm standing pat.
So them signing Anthony Richard, maybe? Richard, I don't know because I'm not too familiar with this signing. That doesn't count as a big splash as he gets signed to a 2-year, 2-way contract today, right, for $775. That's the type of moves you're going to see, though. 2-year, 2-way deals, really rounding out the roster. Some might say, though, and I had a long discussion with one of our, fam here at A2D Radio and Prism, saying that the Flyers have not done enough to change this team around unless they're looking just to retool because they almost made the playoffs. So maybe they're just bringing in projects at this point and looking to work with what roster they have because they haven't moved. They bought out Cam, sure. We talked about him picking up a team today. Brad, to your point, you brought up before the show, finding a home in Tampa Bay. Do they need to do more of that this offseason, though, as they get ready? Or should they try to just build what they had plus Michkov and tow?
Well, I'll tell you what. I think Michkov will be the biggest move they make. But I would not be surprised if they try to make a trade and bring in a young player that's already there. That would not surprise me if they did. Like, for example, and I'm just going to throw the name out, and I don't mean to upset you, Brian, but maybe Zegras. If they have guys that Anaheim might be interested in, somebody. I'm not saying Zegras in particular, but somebody like him that might be underachieving at this point. That's young that they'd like to bring, that they may want to try to bring in and see if they can rescue somewhat or work with to get to their full potential. Other than that, I don't think you're going to see them laying out any money or prospects for any older veterans. It's just not a smart thing to do at this point. And they've been so good about sticking to their game plan. I don't think they're going to change anything. So I think Michkov is going to be the biggest move that they make this offseason.
Yeah, and you really got to center all, your attention on, helping this kid, adapting him. You know what I mean? Like bringing him in, right? I was listening to an interview with Craig Berube, former coach here, former coach of St. Louis Blues, talking about how you got to familiarize him with the organization, with the coach, with the practice facilities. You know what I mean? And I think when you talk about, I don't want to label him a next Lindros. I don't want to label him a generational player, right? This is a player that's good, can be great, at best elite. Maybe he falls in it when all's said and done, but it's the biggest buzzworthy player that the Philadelphia Flyers have had in a while. I think, Brian, the attention needs to go there now.
No, absolutely. Absolutely, the attention needs to go there. Because when was the last time the Flyers developed a 30, 40 goal scorer? It's been some time. And when they finally got these guys to hit their prime, some guy running the GM room traded these guys away. Guys like Carter, Ritchie, like Simone Gagne, former 40 goal scorer for the Flyers. So it's been a while since the Flyers have had that type of talent here, that type of raw talent that can absolutely be a game changer or a franchise changer for any team. Like, this was a kid that should have been the number 1, maybe number 2 overall pick, and he fell to 7. So how the Flyers got this lucky, I don't know. And I realize, there's a lot of expectation to this kid, and I realize like there's going to be hiccups, there's going to be growing pains with him, and there should absolutely be. But I mean, this is a kid that needs to absolutely 1,000%, get accustomed to this organization, what it's like to be a Flyer, what it's like to live in the United States, all that other stuff that goes with it. Get him as comfortable as possible, as quickly as possible, and get him on the ice.
Absolutely. I mean,
would be a good guy to play with for him.
Right now, probably Farabee and Frost, or Lawton and Farabee and Frost, or Lawton and Farabee. One of those.
Any thoughts on? Oh, geez, no, I can't remember the guy. The guy they just saw, Hathaway. Any thoughts to having him play with Hathaway?
Mm-mm.
Just to keep, because he's not a very big player. He's kind of small, actually. I just wouldn't want to see anybody take runs at him, because that's what teams do, especially to rookies that aren't big.
I'm not. I mean, it's not really that kind of league anymore. So for me, it's not really.
Well, the team that won the Stanley Cup certainly did it quite often and regularly. They made it a regular thing. So I just wonder if they're going to start trending back to just, trying to bully the kid when he first comes into the league. I would just say that if he's out there, if Hathaway has some skill, that's why I bring him up. I don't bring up Delorier. I bring up Hathaway. If Hathaway's out there, say on the other wing, and then you have a skilled center with him, they're going to think twice about going after him because Hathaway has his back.
I mean, I wouldn't put anything behind Michkov. I mean, Michkov is 5'10", 176, but he's a thick dude. He's not. His numbers say he's tiny, but he's not. He does have some muscle on him. So, I mean, this is a guy that played in the KHL. It is more known as a finesse league compared to the NHL, but to me, I mean, you got to put this guy with guys who can play and who's going to be able to be the best mentor to get him up to speed. And to me, like, I think Hathaway is going to be a great locker room guy for him moving forward, but I don't think that playing on the ice, he needs to play with guys with a little bit more talent. And that's going to help him take that next step. Farabee's a quick guy. Lawton's a fairly quick guy. But Lawton has really good vision, works really hard to get the puck. And if Michkov can find a way to get open, being with a guy like Farabee and Lawton, it's going to be a very easy transition for him.
From what I've heard, he's very fast, and he's an incredible puck handler.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one thing that he could stop on a dime and make moves that are ridiculous. So if a defenseman gets caught trying to play the puck, he's going to go around them like the proverbial hoop around a barrel. So that's definitely a positive. But
yeah,
what happens when they say, I don't really care what you do with the puck, I'm going right for your shoulder and I'm going to knock you down? Is that would be the only thing I worry about, because he's just not that big.
Right.
But there are a lot of puck watchers in the NHL, so
sure,
all the power to him.
Sure. I got to address Priz right there because he knew he was going to be chiming in with his constant love. And I'm with you, bro, right? As much as, this team has really bird dogged the Swedish Hockey League, well, they've definitely made friends and scouting friends with the Finnish League, and you thought Konsta Helenius would be a good fit for this team. I just think, and as we saw in the draft, we're going to get to the draft talk later on. I know it's a hot topic, but that center iceman was key. It was a focus. It became a big tiebreaker, no matter what the rankings were saying. Flyers had their own ADP for this draft, and they executed it to precisely perfection in terms of fitting team needs. And you might not agree with that. I hear you. I was a big fan of Helenius as well, right? But true centers, guys that are going to be on that position, when you're talking about 17 to 19-year-olds years from now, that's hard to come by. So sometimes you got to take the guy that's ranked a little lower. So, I mean, definitely, you got to eventually put guys around Michkov, to your point, Brad, to your point, Brian, right? And in this clip that I have keyed up for you, Brian, we hear from Danny Briere after the draft. And, of course, we have some comments earlier on this clip that we could listen to in regards to the rationale behind the picks. But this is in regard to what we should expect from the Flyers this offseason moving forward in terms of free agency now that it's open. Before we get league-wide in terms of who's still out there, we can hear from Danny B himself in regards to what we could expect from the Flyers. So, if you want to share that, Brian, if you can see that.
Yep.
Is there room for you to add anyone for Monday? I know you got free agency opening up, and you cleared a little bit of money with the buyout. Are you still approaching free agency as it's probably going to be slow, or do you have maybe a little bit more flexibility now?
Not really. It's I still expect it to be slow. It can always change, but I expect it to be slow on our part. Even with buying out Cam, we had no choice to buy out Cam just to put us in a decent position. So we're not out of the woods with the salary cap. So don't expect too much.
Qualifying offers are due tomorrow.
So I mean, that sort of proof is right in the pudding there.
Yeah, and again, it's how it should be. This is a team that's rebuilding. It's a team that needs to figure out what they have talent-wise as far as their young developing players, and it's not about signing free agents right now. You can sign free agents next year when you have 20. I think it's something along the lines of 18 or 19 million on cap money being freed up, and now you can actually take Garnet Hathaway out of that. So maybe you're looking at like 16. So that's a lot of money that you can free up and use towards some of the what I think is supposed to be a better free agent class too. Like this free agent class, everybody's gone already. Any player of any note or worth is gone, and most of them are getting signed out of the Flyers' price range right now. Even Sean Walker, like I've seen a couple comments of Sean, how come we couldn't get Sean Walker for the price you paid him? Because you can't afford him. Flyers can't afford him on a 3-year contract? They can't afford
4
that.
years and $16 million.
Yeah,
Look it up on Cap Friendly while you can.
Yeah,
before it goes bye-bye.
I
And
think
you'll see there's
$4 million a
little
year.
cash.
That's a lot of money for him.
It's just that these players are getting signed to nice paychecks now, and most of these guys are out of the Flyers price range, which, again, I'm perfectly okay with because rebuild. See what you got talent-wise.
We should all be okay with it because I'll tell you what, some of these guys for what they were signed for are just not good enough to be making that kind of money. And you know what? Almost every one of these guys in year 3 and year 4 of these deals is going to be buying these guys out. I mean,
hey, Maddie.
I'm sorry, Steven Stamkos, $8 million a year when he's 37 and 38 years old with all the injuries he's had. I mean, listen, I love Steven Stamkos. Don't get me wrong. I would have loved for the Rangers to sign him for 2 years and then a club option for the 3rd year. But 4 years? No, that's a buyout doing that.
I think Nashville was just committed to the facelift that we're seeing that club take this offseason and bringing in a couple older players, more experienced players that have cup experience as they try to make a push. But let me pass the baton to, the tardy one, Matthew. In terms of tonight's face-off poll question, the Flyers signing Michkov will be the biggest move they make this offseason. Do you agree or disagree, sir? For the record, we all agree.
Go 4 for 4, Maddie. Let's go. Just do it.
I'm just giving it some real deep thought. Hold on, because I'm going through the roster in my head and everything that has been done so far. And yeah, I think I'm going to make it 4 for 4. I can't really see them doing anything drastic this offseason. I mean, what could they do drastically this offseason?
The only thing I'll say, trades. Now you got Michkov in tow. Now you have that plethora of right wingers. If you really want to rebuild this thing and not be like, okay, well, we're going to, shift around parts and try to see if we can make the playoffs this year, which has been counter to everything that we've heard from Danny Briere, Keith Jones, and John Tortorella, right? You can see them maybe trying to trade a right winger, maybe still trying to trade a Scott Lawton in terms of changing the face of this organization as you build into the future.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know Danny isn't afraid to pull the trigger on trades, but at the same time, I feel like Danny's trying to be smart enough to know, like, okay, well, hold on a second. Let's not jump to a trade immediately. Let's not make a trade just to do it. So, I mean, that he might. I'm not saying he's going to not make a trade at all. I'm just saying that I think he would have to. I think he's absolutely going to wait until he feels like he has got the perfect trade that, in his opinion, is perfect trade for his organization just as much as what he's giving up, where it won't kill us and we get something worth having back at the end of the day.
And we saw we saw that perfectly executed at the draft. Didn't see the player they wanted at 32. Didn't want to go for another reach. Didn't want to go for anything. So what do? They traded the pick away, and they now have potentially 3 first-round picks next year.
Right.
And
so
it's supposed to be a deep draft.
I mean, the good news is that you keep stocking up on those draft picks, and you can really flood the Flyers in with possibly your next depth with your top depth for the next wave for Philadelphia. The new era of Orange will have its official core being developed by that point. With what they're trying to do, it seems like selling deep into this next year's draft.
Right.
You want to get as many prospects in the prospect pool as you can get
Right.
in a rebuild. That's the whole point, because you know what, you're going to miss some of them.
Of course.
Not everybody is going to. You're not going to hit a home run with every guy.
Right.
But if you have 5 guys, okay, and you hit on 2, okay. If you have 8 guys, you're liable to hit on 3. So 3. Now you got a forward line.
Right. I
And,
mean,
and that's the whole. That's really what it is in a nutshell. The more you have to choose from, the odds are there's going to be more aces in the hole for you.
with what John's saying, how far off is Bonk? He's not committed anywhere, is he?
No,
No. So I mean, maybe we see him this year.
I think he can make the roster this year, at least
Yeah.
for the
I
first
think
9 games.
I think he needs another year down there. I mean, I like between like splitting between college and getting his beak wet. Can he make it? Does he have enough talent? Yeah, but I think especially with what offseason deals we've seen so far, right? He's the guy that could be left down there to simmer, and if he's playing really well down there mid-season, right, you could shift the guy that you have on a 2-way contract and make that work, right? Like say with like an Adam Ginning, you know what I mean? Like we talked about last week, right? I think Oliver Bonk though could do really well with a full season for the Phantoms in the AHL.
Right.
And then you have
hurt.
you have that stipulation where if you want to send him back to juniors, if he's still eligible, you have 10 games to do that. So you can get a little preview of him to see kind of how he acclimates to the NHL and in a few games. And before that 10-game mark, you feel like he needs a little bit more time down in juniors, or you want to send to the AHL, you can do that. And then you get him a little more seasoning, and it at least gets his feet wet in the NHL in games that actually mean something. And you can really, truly see what you have in him. And we've seen him play meaningful hockey for London. I mean, they are the OHL Cup champs. So, and he was a major part of that. So that alone should really make you excited for what this kid could do. He probably could have made the roster out of camp last year had he had a spot for him. Because even Tortorella said, "You did a great camp last year." I think he could have made the squad. I think he initially makes the squad this year, but they give him a handful of games to kind of see what he's got.
So Prism saying Briere's draft was a C+, largely off the first they got from Edmonton. Well, this wasn't a very deep draft to begin with, so I think Danny was trying to see. I think what Danny was looking at, I think he was looking at, okay, not only necessarily team needs, but also I think he was looking at system needs. Like, who's going to fit well in the Flyers system? Whereas in a regular draft that's deep, you take the best player available, or you take the player that you feel is going to have the immediate impact. Here, I feel like he was just kind of looking at it like, let's see who we can actually work with here. Because I feel like this draft, besides the top 3, everything's a project for the most part. And I think that's why we get the draft that we got from Danny.
Oh, I 1,000% agree with you, Matthew. Right, especially the first 4 picks. Right, three out of the 4 natural center icemen, and some size there in the second and fourth rounds. Right, and on the D line in Gill, like that. Like I said, we can get into the specifics in the second half of the show. I don't want to get too draft heavy here, but I just really feel that, we got the youngest player in this draft and the second youngest player in this draft. And that's just guys that when you have a team and you have that slow build cooking, you can really work with these kids, develop these kids as they fill out their bodies. They can still grow a couple inches in height, put on some weight and muscle, right? And be really strong on that puck. I got an awesome clip of our first round pick later on the show. We'll get to just a little
Okay.
teaser.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
To kind of piggyback off of what you just said there, Rob, Gil's already in development camp. He's already here.
Which is
Right.
good.
He's in Voorhees. He's
Nice.
working already.
Nice.
So that's
Yeah.
a great thing to say. I mean, Jet's here too. So that's massive too. Like I realize it's development camp and not a whole ton should be looked into it, but it really tells you whether or not maybe you did hit in the spots that you did. So
Possibly.
I mean it's also going to tell you whether or not these guys are going to make it.
Well, think about it this way. There have been projects the Flyers have had recently that haven't turned out to be all that bad. I mean, Travis Senheim was a project. He wasn't an immediate hit the moment he came out. But he's doing pretty damn well now. That was a project for the Flyers.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see here. Benny's Nation, I think we all draft capital. That with all the draft capital they have, you go with best available in that spot. I mean, next year, definitely, because like we said before, next year's draft class is supposed to be just a murderer's row of talent.
Right.
So,
Right. But Danny showed that he could do that because he did that with Michkov. When he slipped down to 7, he went best available. Do you think they went into that draft expecting to draft Michkov? I guarantee you not. And it might be the best draft pick, on this side of the link. You know what I mean? No offense to your god, Howie Roseman, but I'm seeing some similarities here with Danny Band just going for his guy, not what the industry is telling you, right? Mm-hmm. But and he was even thinking about trading up to get some of these guys that he got low that we were saying we were getting ripped off on later in the draft. Right, that they could have gone as a late first round pick, right? I get it. I was a big Helenius mark, right? Cole Eiersman was an option there as well, Brad. You spoke about that in our chat, and he really slipped down. So
I was surprised about that. I was really surprised about that.
I mean, he didn't really go off that. He wasn't really that far off from where his rankings were.
Eiersman, you mean?
Mm-hmm. He was projected to be around 20. 11, 12, 13.
20,
he went at 15.
I've seen him as high as 10 in some actually as high as 8. So the fact that he went down to 20, that was a long way.
I mean, they went defense heavy.
Maybe Danny and his scouts.
Basically they took the best center available.
Yeah.
Now, if they reached, which I think they did reach a little bit, but they got the best center available, and if they waited until 30, he probably would have been picked.
Right, he would have been picked.
Either you get him or you don't. You have to take a stand and get who you really want to get.
Right, but the issue is that Helenius can play center for you too. But I think they ultimately saw him as a winger, much like Cutter, and they needed to get strong up the middle, and going with Jett there, right? Yeah, I mean it's drafting what the team needed over what was the best available at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Ralphie's saying, and every move Danny has made is gearing up for next year's draft class and free agent class.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
And so him, Freddie J. Huffman saying Stamkos is absolute money on the PP. He is worth it just for that. Stamkos is deadly on that power play. But I will say this, with the moves that Nashville's made, they are all in. They want to stop being a first round punching bag. They want to actually make a deep run into the postseason.
Saros got paid.
Yep, Saros got paid. So everybody who was thinking that he was getting traded didn't happen. They said, nope, we're going to stay invested in Saros.
And you know what's funny? Now they're going to trade Askarov.
Which is interesting when you think about it.
He's pissed.
Imagine that sleight of hand being pulled on you. You think that you're on the team that you're going to be set in, and then they pull a switch on you and say, nah, we're going to keep Saros. You're the one who's moving.
Yeah, he's pissed, and he should be.
Yeah,
and if I'm him, I'm like, trade me now. I don't care where
Toronto, I go. Or Edmonton. That's the guy I'm going after.
No, with Flyers. Flyers have the draft capital. They have players that
Well, no, I
can play
mean,
now.
okay, if you think the Flyers are ready to try to get him, yeah,
Get him
that
now.
would be a good
He's
young
young.
player to get.
He's young. He's 21, 22. If that, get him now.
That's plenty young enough. Yeah.
Get him now. Go
mean,
get him.
Why not? If he's young and very talented goaltending prospect, might as well.
Right. You got 3 first-round picks now going into a pretty deep draft next year. There's some draft capital there. You got young guys that you might need to move to free up some cap space. Send them Farabee or somebody like that. Have them send back Askarov.
I don't know if they can. I don't think that they can. I'm talking about Nashville. I don't think they could take back Farabee because it's probably too expensive. But I get what you're saying, and you're not wrong.
No, you eat half the contract. Simple solution.
Oh, okay.
Then you're paying them 2.5.
Yeah, if it's $3 million, he could probably do it. They could do it.
Or we get a third team involved like we did the last time we traded with Nashville. Didn't end well for us though. But
No,
we tried that with Kane. That didn't work well either.
You know what does work well though, boys?
What does?
Hitting that like, hitting that subscribe, turning on that notification, never missing anything ATG has to offer. We have something for everybody, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call that cesspool over there anymore. We got something for everybody. So hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn on those notifications, and give us a retweet. Give us a share. Tell your friends about us. Let's keep it rolling, boys.
So let's see here. So I'm looking at some of the comments here.
I'm backing off, Maddie. It's all you.
Okay. I did star a few of them. So let's take a look here. So Dylan, he said the Flyers had the worst draft imaginable. Briere did a lot of Hextall picks where he went with eye tests over analytics. I hope they work it out in the end, but on paper, it's a terrible draft. Well, I will say this, though, Dylan. Not necessarily defending it if it's bad, if it's bust, which, again, when you think about it, you really don't know if it's going to be a bust or not. Now, honestly, we didn't know Nolan Patrick was going to be a bust. He turned into one, just as simple as that. So, at the end, it did. It ended his career. And also Moran. Moran could have been actually a pretty good D-man. When he played, he wasn't that bad, but injuries again killed him.
But here's the thing, fellas, is no matter how you treated this draft, right, they tried to trade up into the top. Did they not with Columbus? Did not work out. Then you have a clear-cut guy, and it would have been the best draft imaginable. After that, you go with your guys in something that they can't come out and say, but this is a low-talent draft. So you go for the guys that are going to be better for your system, and you can coach and mold in them, and then while also shedding extra picks for picks next year. I couldn't disagree with you more, Dylan. I'm sorry. We usually see eye to eye, but I thought I wouldn't be giving Briere an A because there were other guys that I liked in, certain draft ranges, but I trust in what we've seen so far to be very anti-Hextall.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll kick it to you guys.
I don't agree. I'm with you, Rob. I don't necessarily agree with this because you know what? We knew that after like the top 15, the talent level doesn't necessarily drop, but it's basically all the same. So nobody really sticks out over the other. So at that point, I mean, a lot of GMs, nobody made a huge splash.
Right.
Except for Montreal, who had Demidov fall to them. You got to make that pick. But
a lot of people, and this might be what Dylan is coming from, right? I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I've heard a lot of this in the Flyers Talk group and as well as our own A2D group, which is the best. But we're a little biased, right? But a lot of people thought that when we traded with, or, we made the trade with the Wild, right? That the clear-cut pick would have been Zeb Bynum, correct?
Yep.
Right? It doesn't fit this team because who is Zeb Bynum? Very talented. Briere himself has said that he's going to go on and be a good player, but a small-bodied defenseman, and that's what this pipeline is full of. From the top and Cam York and Drysdale on into, the ranks of some of the guys that we have currently with the Phantoms, right? They had a guy like Gilmore planned, right? 6'4". Brad, you were talking about what a beast that when that draft pick went down, right? That's what the guys had more. So I think what you saw was when they couldn't move forward, they moved back, not for this draft, but for next draft, and we're going to get the guys that we want. That maybe they did go with an eye test over analytics, but I think it's and I hear that point. I trust the numbers, but in this draft, I think that mattered less.
I'm gonna say this though. Like you were saying, Rob, this was a weaker draft, and you can't necessarily rake Danny over the coals for it's just like, listen, it's kind of slim pickings for everybody out here, not just for Danny. But for all the GMs,
Mhm.
all the GMs are really got to study and do a lot more work in this draft than they normally do. I mean, any idiot can go up there and pick the projected top player in that spot when it's so obvious to everybody who you're picking. I mean, it doesn't take a hockey genius to go up there and pick Connor McDavid at number 1. It's like he's a generational talent. You take him every time at number 1 overall. It doesn't take a genius to do that.
And there's one other thing you missed, Robbie. When it comes to Zev, guess who his representation is?
Same agent as Cutter.
Bingo.
Yeah, I read that.
Interesting.
So that played a part into, I'm sure, leaving a pretty sour taste in the mouth of the Flyers. That,
But
as soon as they saw that Zev fell to them, they're like, do we really want to risk it with this agent again? Do we want to really fall into that same pattern of, I guess, toxicity that they had to deal with Cutter? So it's like, all right, let's go back one. Let's get our guy. And I like the pick. I don't like where they picked him, but to me, I think Jett's going to be a good player. He is Scott Baldwin 2.0 with more offensive upside.
right, he's 17.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a minute
can't-
before
you
we
can't
see
knock- You can't knock them for getting.
He's getting hand jobs behind the
unlimited.
7-Eleven still. Come on.
Oh man, already?
Guys, you know what they say? A good big man is better than a good little man.
That's true.
In hockey, it's just it is what it is. And if it's between a talented big player and a talented small player, you want to get the big guy in there. And the Flyers need size, especially down the middle.
Yeah, great.
Wait, Brad. When you said a big man is better than a little man,
A good big man,
is better than a little man?
a good little man.
Okay. Were we still talking about the draft or the 7-Eleven there?
Oh
No, we're not going there. No hard 11s here.
I hear you, Dylan. I hear you, man. That's what I love about that. I was talking with Prince today. We're not going to see eye to eye, nor do we have to all the time. That's what makes these conversations great.
Right.
I could be dead wrong. But like I said, I'm going to show you a move later that shows a lot of promise from young Jett there.
Nation.
well played, Benny.
So before we jump into that, I had a couple of draft comments starred.
We got a comment. We got a quote here whenever you guys are ready from Michkov that posted up here too.
All right, then let's jump in real quick here to what we got from Benny's here saying, unless Edmonton wins the cup, they will be in a better spot next year, and Edmonton will not be a lottery pick, so the pick is coming our way next year. Of course, going into the details of the deal that was made, which just makes it actually a little bit more beneficial when you think about it for the Flyers.
Absolutely.
And John Fisher, saying Luchanko was an excellent pick. He's still growing and is an excellent skater / playmaker. The way he's progressing, top 6 forward in 3 to 4 years.
Totally agree. I totally agree. Hardworking player, ton of offensive upside. This is, like I said, I like the pick. I just don't like where they picked it at 13. They probably could have traded back a couple more spots and gotten a couple more pieces of draft capital and still gotten their guy. So we knew Buffalo was going to take Hellenis afterwards because why wouldn't they? They need a scoring winger. But this kid's going to be, he has the potential to be a top 6 center. More realistically, probably a second line center. Nothing to scratch at, especially in a draft like this. If you can find yourself a strong second line center that has the talent and can, get into some of those dirty areas and work, that's a win in my book. That's why I like this kid.
So I'll just star a couple here for later. So let's do our quote here that we had from Rob before we jump into some more draft talk.
All right, coming in.
That's
right
why I figured round off the Mitch talk here and with our celebration.
And Matvei Michkov's comment, or should we call him Mitchie? I feel like that should be his nickname, Mitchie.
Well, we can't call him Mitchie Poo because that's already been taken.
So
I've seen a couple creative nicknames out there. We'll come up with something for him.
I think you got
How about MM?
MM. I like that. MM. But what's it called? But I think this is this is gonna be a player that's gonna be known by his first name.
Makes
Here
sense.
comes Matvei.
Matvei.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. I'm extremely happy to officially become a part of the Flyers family. Being in the NHL has been a dream for me since childhood. I would like to say a huge thank you to the Flyers management for their trust. I will do everything possible to meet their expectations. I can't wait to join my teammates and start preparing for the new season together. And I would especially like to greet our fans. And we have the same dream to win the Stanley Cup. And I promise that we'll do my best to help this team and make that possible.
All right. Where's my wallet? I'm just gonna get his jersey now. Where is it?
LaRock 20 saying Matty Mish. I don't mind that.
I like that.
That's not bad. It's not bad at all. Oh wow, the home opener for the Flames is against the Flyers. That is interesting, actually. But
yeah, and that was great with the schedule coming out, seeing that the Flyers are going to start the year with their Western Canada trip. Get that out of the way. I was having a chat with somebody in one of our sports talk groups saying that get there a week ahead of time, get adjusted to the time zone, which is always the big thing when you have it. Usually it's around Christmas in the heart of the season, right? Now you're going to get that. That's going to be a serious feather in the cap of the Philadelphia Flyers.
Absolutely. And
the only problem is you could end up 0-4. But I don't want to be the Debbie Downer here, but
well,
that's a rough way to start.
Here's the
And
thing,
you could wind up 0-4 at home too. So I mean,
right? We really don't know what the
They're playing
Flyers are
against
going to
a
be this
awfully good
year.
team.
Honestly, we really
They're
don't.
playing-
We don't know what's going to happen.
True, but
You don't.
Vancouver, Edmonton.
expect this team to take a
We
step
don't know
back.
what
That's all I'm gonna
Vancouver's
say.
going to be next year either. Really, when you think about it, I'm going to say this right now. Vancouver is just a much more ahead of schedule, built up Flyers team. A team that had a lot to prove and proved a lot, and were just further along in the process than the Flyers. That's why they did as well as they did last year. And honestly, I don't know if they're going to do it again next year. They may very well not make the playoffs again next year.
I mean, they went out and
That
got
would be
Jacob DeBrusque, so I mean that's definitely going to help.
Well, that definitely ups their chances of it. But again,
They were a good team last year. I wouldn't. That's a tough matchup going up there.
I mean,
they're not going to win.
I mean, they're going to have to go to Edmonton and Calgary. They could probably beat Calgary. I would think. I think they're a better team than Calgary at this point. But they could easily go 1-3 on that. That's the only problem with that.
Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't the Flyers sweep Edmonton this year in the regular season?
Yes.
Didn't they also sweep Vancouver, or at least split the series with Vancouver?
They played Edmonton early in the season when everybody was beating Edmonton.
Yeah, that's right.
That doesn't change my point.
But Vancouver also beat Edmonton 8-1 at that time too. So I mean, there is something to be said about the difference between Edmonton at the beginning of the season and Edmonton at the end of the season. They seem to pick up steam. I mean, maybe you'll catch them early and they'll be playing lousy again.
Catch him early again. Exactly.
Right.
You know,
Maybe it'll
So-
work.
just a tough. It's a tough spot. Look. That's a tough spot to start
So let me
To be
see
honest.
here.
for a
Think-
young team to go out and play all those veteran teams. That's not easy.
So-
I think it's perfect opening.
Same.
Perfect. Road Warriors.
Let's go.
Hard-nosed kids that don't give a fuck. Let's go. You know what I mean? John Tortorella type team. You know
Mhm.
it. Come on.
Not taking anything away from Shiloh's. He's a good goalie.
That's
But
what it
it's no easy task. I get it. I get
No.
it.
Vancouver can score too. By the way, they're not
Yeah.
they're not Edmonton when it comes to scoring, but they can score as well.
So I will say, I think Me Metal Mike had the comment earlier. This relating to Michkov before we continue forward, saying, "Would you take Giroux back on a 2-year deal?" Honestly, I mean, if he is still able to help a young player, I kind of wouldn't mind it on a cheap deal.
I
if he
would do
wants-
it-
If he wants to make $2 million a year.
I mean, if it's a cheap deal, you go for it. If he wants more than that, you kind of have to pass on it and just say let
Money
it go.
could be better spent like ponying up for Konechny, maybe making a move for Draisaitl. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Well,
like
I
I'm just
wouldn't
saying,
go
like,
for Draisaitl, but
I'm just
Okay.
saying. Well, I mean, you know, like, I mean, down the road, you're going to want to invent. You're trying to create. Not trying. They are creating a place where free agents want to come to, right?
Right.
And eventually, they're going to come. So, you know, like, but it befits your point, though, Maddie. If it's a cheap enough deal and it's a veteran, yes, but I don't think at his point in his career, there's still going to be some command for Mula. And two, it's going to scream to a lot of this fan base that just comes out of the woodwork and starts yapping at the bit. Oh, same old Flyers bringing back the same players. You know what I mean? So
true.
I think it's about moving forward, and it's a new era of Orange. So
That's fine.
it's-
Yeah.
Yeah. The only
get
way I'm re-signing Giroux is on a 1-day contract so he can retire a Flyer the way he should,
right.
The
the
Yeah.
way he deserves.
Yeah.
That's the
So
only way I'm signing Giroux.
So continuing on our draft talk, let's see here. Swoopy had a big comment, so I saved it. He said one of two. Once this team has built a young nucleus and have ours together, a young roster, then start focusing on adding vets and big name vets, which we've said a lot. 2 of 2, but do not mistake the signing of vets and big free agent names to long-term deals at positions that they have prospects at. Don't ruin or block guys with big names at positions they don't need. This happened way too much. Know the positions of need and then sign guys at those positions. And then he finished up with Flyers wanted to trade back even more than with the Wild, but the clock was expired and couldn't keep making the commissioner wait. They wanted to trade again after trading with a Wild, but no team wanted to do it, seemed. And but all in all, the Flyers really wanted to make a big trade up into the top 4, but just couldn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's how it works. Them's the breaks. You
Yeah,
can't
I
do
mean-
anything about it.
They were in with a deal with Columbus. Columbus wanted 3 first-round picks for the number 4. Briere said no. Don't blame them. They wanted the 12, the 24, and a first-rounder next year. I'd say no too. And then there was a deal. There was a deal announced, unofficially announced, like a week before the draft, that Ottawa and the Flyers had a deal in place for the number 7. That deal fell through too. So teams were trying to make deals. They just, I think when they started to see how the players were starting to fall cemented into the rankings, they were like, oh, well, I don't really have to move to get this guy. I'll have to move to get this guy. It's just kind of, and the way the draft fell, it was really wonky. I saw top end young defensive talent fall into the middle late first round. I still don't know why. Teams are going bonkers. So the thing that I liked is the teams went up and got the guys that they wanted instead of going out and getting best available, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially in a draft like this. I liked it. Flyers went up and got their guy. I like the guy. I mean, you had, like Dylan said, they got a steal in the draft. They got one of the highest touted defensemen in the draft. They got him at, what was it, 9 they were picking, Dylan? And then the number 3 defenseman fell to Minnesota at 12.
Yeah, it was a weird year.
Sometimes you just gotta just go with it.
But here's the thing: we're gonna find out later on who was a gem for a team and who wasn't a gem for a team. Besides the obvious choices, there have been drafts like this before. Like I said, I've equated this draft to like 1999. 99 was a bad draft for almost everybody because there just was everyone was making reaches. No one really knew who was the big steal that year. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it was kind of like there were so many misses from teams. The same thing can happen this year where there were misses in the first round left and right. And then, oh, that guy was in the third round and he turned out to be so much better than that. These are the kind of drafts where a lot of that stuff happens at the end of the day.
It's just a lot of random shit just happened in that draft. Like,
right.
The 2005 draft, that was a great draft. But then Henrik Lundqvist was drafted in the 7th round, so you never know.
Right.
There's always a gem. It's just a matter of who found them.
So Mike saying San Jose got their guy. I mean, you would hope that they would get the number 1 overall draft pick. They were that bad. So, but
and Mike Greer accidentally slipped when he's saying, "Oh yeah, when we take Celebrini at 1." Oh, I mean, did I just say something?
Listen, it's not that bad. And sure, he did it on purpose, but really, is he revealing a trade secret if everyone knew it was going to happen? It wasn't really much of one. No. The worst kept secret in all of hockey. But anyway, Dylan saying Zane Parik was projected top 5. Utah and Seattle was expected to pick defense and win offense. And Ottawa reached on Yakmachuk and let him slip to the Flames. And Parik will be a nice partner to Makar when he comes home in 2027.
Well, what do you mean Makar? Is he trying to say that Kel Makar signing in Calgary?
I think that's what he's saying.
I'm not sure if that's what he's saying, but I'm thinking that's what he's saying.
I mean, if Cale Makar signs with
Calgary?
With Calgary. I mean, Calgary right now, though, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, they got the money, but it's just like, I don't know. Calgary's kind of, do we really know where Calgary's at? Because I don't think they're in the best of spots right now. I mean, not necessarily with cap, but I just mean in team structure. Things kind of a little weird going on.
Not in terrible shape, but they could definitely improve. They made some moves this offseason. Obviously, you know, I want to say the biggest move was trading Andrew Mangiapane to Washington. So there was that move. And then,
which I don't understand, by the way. Mangiapane is a good player.
Cap space, and Washington's trying to man up for one last push with Ovi.
Makes sense. Dylan saying Makar's from Calgary, always wanted to play for the Flames. 2027 is probably the end of the rebuild / retool. And I will say, though, Dylan, there is a worry about that because another team up there in Canada decided to bring in a hometown boy to be the captain of their particular team, and he's done about fuck all for them. So I'm just saying, something to worry about.
Utah might have done Tish a bit of a favor there. You know what I mean? It'd be a tough, you know what I mean? And do you think Calgary would have grabbed him if he was available still? You know, it's a lot of pressure to put on a kid. You know, playing Hall of Fame father's hometown. I think it worked out the way it was supposed to, even though it would have been a really good story.
Yeah. You know what? That's a great point, Rob. It's a great point. A lot of pressure and a lot of big shoes to fill in Calgary with your Hall of Fame father. So maybe Utah could have absolutely done him a huge favor.
I will say this might be a great opportunity for him because he'll have a chance to Utah will have the spotlight on him right now, but once the first season goes away, the spotlight kind of falls off of you a little bit. And I think that might actually be great if the pressure is really not going to be on him because this is a team that relocated. And so once the first season's over, even if they get the new mascot name, still going to be one of those where it's like, they're not brand new. So pressure's not on them. I can't imagine that for a player going into, say, Seattle, that the pressure is too high for them right now. Nothing against the Seattle fans who are supporting the Kraken, but the Kraken right now are in that position of they're still trying to find their foundation in the league.
Good point.
We got 5 minutes, so story time real quick because
Go ahead.
Mike definitely just sparked this story. So, hate to break it to you, Mike. He did not sign with the Devils. Jonathan Marchessault wound up signing with Nashville with Brady Shea and Steven Stamkos.
Yeah.
So here's the story.
Super team.
Well, yes, absolutely super team. But so Jonathan Marchessault basically had the deal all wrapped up, finalizing the deal to go to the Devils. And then with how kind of things fell for Stamkos calls up Jonathan Marchessault, hey, I just got a really good contract with Nashville. Come join me. Deal fell through for the Devils. Stammer pulled Jonathan Marchessault to sign in Nashville for what seems bonkers to me that you're signing him to a lesser contract than Brady Shea.
I got to say right now, man, after everything you just said,
Shea.
I feel
Makes
like
no sense.
I'm just going to say this right now. I feel like I kind of have to get a Stamkos Nashville jersey. You want to know why? He stopped the Devils from getting better. You know what, man? Hey, good for you, Stammer. I'm happy for you, man. Good for
Devils
you.
still got better. The Devils still got better,
The Devils did get better.
But
yeah,
here's
true.
the thing.
But they don't have Marchessault, so there's that at least.
Yeah,
fair enough. So basically what happened was the initial offer that Stamkos got from Tampa was, I think it was like 8 years at $3 million.
Yeah, I heard that
Stammer obviously willing to take the hometown discount to stay in Tampa, which makes a lot of sense, was willing to take 4 to 5 depending on the term. So Sarangovich gets traded at the draft, frees up money. He's like, okay, so there's your money there to pay Stammer. So Stammer's going to stay. He's not leaving now. Then they go out and get Gensel, which is fine. I think Jay Gensel's a good piece for them. But then you sign him to a 7-year, $9 million contract. This morning, yesterday after Stammer signed for 4 years, $8 million a year, what does Tampa do? Resigns Victor Hedman to a 4-year, $8 million contract extension.
Wait.
Why are you not signing Stamkos? That's your captain. That's your identity. What the fuck are you doing, Tampa Bay?
So you mean to tell me the deal that Stamkos wanted, they just gave to Hedman?
They gave to Victor Hedman.
I mean, I understand Hedman is a big part of your dynasty, but what? That was your captain. What are you doing?
That was also the greatest player you ever had.
Right. The one he was the heir apparent to the throne that Saint Louis and LeCavier left vacant.
Riddle me that one. Riddle me that one. Makes no sense. All right, we got a Jet highlight.
We do. Let's get to that before we close out.
All right, here we go, boys.
Here, hold on.
Oh,
before we do that, let me get that. There we go. Got the poll screen. There we
go. I would bring it. That's perfect right there, Robbie.
Yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm.
How about there?
Oh, it's even better.
All right, let's see this.
Watch this sick move. Now, mind you, the competition's lighter. I get it, but that's Jet there in the middle making that move around the whole team. You'll see it. You'll see it in depth or a little in closer here in a second.
Looks like a McDavid move.
Yes, from blue line, from almost coast to coast as he gets fed at his defending blue line.
Like what McDavid did to the Rangers a couple of years ago. Yeah,
that was
similar.
He literally just look at that. He just gets right
undress
through.
Everybody.
Absolutely. He just
backhand flip.
Dirty.
And let me just stop it at that, right? And say that this is a guy now. He needs to work on his shooting, so don't let one clip mislead you into what this player is. He's got the speed, as we saw there on display, going blue line and on goal line there, blowing past people. He's got great puck handling skills, got good playmaking skills, dynamite on the power play, right? Where he'll work on is that scoring and that finishing because he's more of a playmaker at this point. But somebody that could potentially be, and you could say this for a couple of these center icemen that they drafted in the first 4 rounds, a potential 200-foot guy that could be a line mate with Michkov potentially down the road.
There you go. So, I mean, if the Flyers have the ability to develop that and grow that in his game, it might just be a steal for the Flyers in this year's draft.
It's there. We see it. You know what I mean? Now, he can build up his strength, his size, and be able to do that on the NHL level one day. Now, people are going to be eating crow after talking shit about Danny B. I agree with you, Frizz. I agree with you talent-wise. Yes, I just think Jett is the better fit after watching film. But I am kind of sticking. I'm not flip-flopping because if the Flyers went Consta, I would have been even higher on Danny B. I'll be honest. I would have been even higher because he could potentially play center ice too. But,
would you have jumped through the ceiling in your house?
Yes.
All right. A backflip off my balcony.
All right, so we thank everybody for joining us for Flyers Talk A2D, and I don't know if I agree with that there, Dylan. There was a time period where the Flyers had like 20 finished players on their defensive core, so I wouldn't necessarily say that. But anyway, with that being said, though, we thank everybody for joining us for this edition of Flyers A2D, brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy, the doc, Dr. Paul Vidal. If you got any aches and pains, go to him. And next week, we will continue our coverage of the offseason for the Flyers. We'll see if they make any moves. And, of course, we'll keep our attention around the league as well, see what major signings happen, if any major trades do happen as well. So we'll keep our ear to the ground, and as the off-season goes along, we'll come up with some fun, creative things just to keep everybody occupied while we wait patiently for September to roll around and the start of next season. So until then, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy out there. Nashville is coming to try and win themselves a cup. We'll see what they do next year. Until then, though, everybody, we'll see you guys next week. Peace and love, everyone.
Happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th of July.